Hey, stepmamas, welcome to the Stepmom Unfiltered podcast. This is your go to space for unapologetic, unfiltered conversations about the roller coaster ride of stepmotherhood. We're your hosts. I'm Adrienne.
And I'm Amelia. We understand that being a stepmom is like walking a tightrope in stilettos. So we're here to help you embrace the messiness, laugh through the craziness, and find strength in our shared experiences.
This podcast is more than just a series of episodes, it's a community for stepmoms to be real, raw, and unfiltered. Buckle up because we're about to embark on a journey of candid conversations, taboo topics, and expert insights.
This is the Stepmom Unfiltered podcast, your sanctuary for real talk and real solutions.
Welcome back to another episode of the Stepmom Unfiltered podcast. How are you, Amelia?
I'm good. I'm super excited for my friend Megan today. Good
Yeah.
morning.
I'm so excited, you guys. This is so exciting.
We're glad to
Yeah.
have you here. So, Megan is a single mama to two little boys, an integrative health coach by day, self-care queen by night, aka she loves super early bedtimes, which we can't wait to hear more about. Megan's favorite place to be is outside in the sunshine with her boys and their sidekick German Shepherd Hunter, who was just walking around. So you might get to see him in the background if you're watching the video version of this. And if you're feeling overwhelmed, burned out, exhausted from the noise in the health space, Megan is your girl. She works with women virtually all over the country who read the books, listen to the podcasts, follow the health influencers, and still struggle with fatigue, brain fog, irritability, and who simply don't feel at home in their own body. Each one of her services embrace individuality and looking at wellness through a holistic lens. Mind, body, and soul nourishment are the three pillars of life that are so deeply connected, which is why they must all be taken care of equally. Megan never recommends a specific diet or lifestyle for you to follow, but instead works with you to uncover what makes you feel your best and helps you integrate that into your current lifestyle. So, it's so great to have you here, Megan, and we cannot wait to learn more about all of your health tips and tricks and how that translates to you as a mom and navigating this crazy world of two households, kids going between, and doing it all so vulnerably and without hatred, which is what really stands out to me.
Thank you.
Yeah, so that was, you know, Megan, I've been watching you online for a couple of years, right? We've kind of been interacting here and there. I always say, I wish I lived close because I feel like we could be such great friends. But what I've loved about what I see you sharing is just your vulnerability through divorce and what that looks like for you. And as I've said to Adrienne, how you're vulnerable with sharing that part, but it's not, when you share your sadness and your difficulties for your boys going to their dads, it's not like a hatred towards your ex. It's more of I'm just sad that this is the way that it is.
Yes.
But it's also the way that it needed to be. And so you're doing that just so beautifully. And I love it so much. And I think it's such an important message to share.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's really no bringing hatred into the conversation just doesn't really serve anybody. And I always think about my boys, and this is not the life that they necessarily chose, right? And so how can we come together and support them as they live very different lives in each household? And so figuring out the transition and giving them tools has helped me also along the journey of supporting them and supporting myself.
I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
So before we dive into questions, we always have a fun question that we like to ask all of our guests. Amelia?
Yeah. So before we get started, we need to know what is in your cup.
Oh, what is in my cup?
Yes. What are you drinking today?
I am drinking mushroom coffee. I
Knew it.
I used to be the coffee girl. I mean, just really obsessed, the whole trendy, like, here's my coffee for the day type thing. And then I realized it really wasn't serving my adrenals very well. And I'm really focused on that right now in this season. And so I've switched over to mushroom coffee. I also love a good London fog when I go to the coffee shop. Typically what I order now is a nice London fog with half of the syrups that they put in there. And it just makes it feel fancy because they froth the milk and it's
Mhm.
fun to drink, but I'm still supporting my health.
I
Good,
love
yeah.
that. And if you find a decaf mushroom coffee, I need to know about it because I have
Okay.
yet to find one.
I don't know. I haven't looked that far into it. I mean, I really like a little bit of the caffeine. So, yeah, but I'll let you know for sure.
Yeah,
I love
yeah.
that. I love that.
Adrian, what are you drinking today?
My
We must
decaf
know.
black
Your
coffee
decaf.
as usual in a fun mug because I love my mugs. So this one says I'm all nose until there's coffee.
Yeah, I'm coffee too, as always.
Yeah.
Awesome. So, yeah, can you dive in a little bit more just about your journey through divorce and kind of how that came about and what that looks like for your boys and things like that?
Yeah, sure. So I came from a very religious background. Growing up, we were the family that was in church every single Sunday, morning and night, and Wednesday night,
Okay.
youth group on
Okay.
Thursdays. Very,
Wow.
yeah, it's a very different culture. And so I grew up with the picture of divorce being bad or wrong. And so that was always in the back of my mind. I started seeing signs of our marriage being really unhealthy about 4 or 5 years before I left. And I
Okay.
just kept thinking, if I just keep doing the work, if I love him harder, if I, all of these things that I do, this is what God wants for me. And so he'll figure it out and it will be okay. And I kept telling myself that story over and over and over again and I think a lot of people in their divorce journey, when they look back, they can see little pieces of their heart that just break a little bit at a time. And so when I told everybody I got divorced or was getting divorced, the question is always, but why? You guys seemed so happy. What happened? And there wasn't one incident that happened. It was
Mhm.
little teeny tiny breaks along the way that you can look back and say, okay, a little bit of my heart broke here. And this incident was stood out to me. Those kinds of things until those add up. And you get to the point where you realize, I can't love somebody into change. And that was a
Yeah.
very, very hard lesson for me to learn. I would say I'm still learning that now,
Yeah.
all of these years later, but it came to the point where I thought, if I don't change something, this is what my life is going to look like in 5 years. And I knew I didn't want that. And so 2 weeks before the world shut down in 2020, March of 2020, I decided to end my marriage. And I'm so grateful that I did at that time. Obviously, I felt like the whole world was reflecting my inner world because everything was complete chaos.
Yes.
There was so much fear, and it was
Mhm.
absolutely a terrifying time to get divorced. Now I see that as protection because I think if I would have known what was to
Mhm.
come, I wouldn't have been brave enough to leave. And
Okay, yeah.
so I can reflect on that in a very positive, grateful light. But at the time, I didn't have that perspective. I was in fear mode of everything in the world was so scary. So we got through the first, year or two of COVID and things started to level out a little bit more. And I worked a lot on my mindset. I started going to weekly therapy, and that was the absolute best decision I think I've ever made in my entire life. I highly recommend finding a therapist that is trauma informed and works with people who are going through divorce and has maybe been through a divorce themselves. And a
Yeah.
lot of my clients, they'll ask me, how do you find a good therapist? And I always recommend you don't stop until you find the right fit because you will
Mhm.
know when that is the right fit. So if you have to go through 5, 10 therapists, don't give up because you will find the person that is a comfortable, safe space that can really speak into your life. And that is
Yeah.
my top recommendation for anybody going through a big life change is find somebody who can sit with you in the pain and who can just help walk you through
Mhm.
all of the emotional consequences that come from a decision like that. And I started therapy in 2021, and she helped me really reframe because in my head, my story was I left my marriage and that made me a bad or wrong person. And after delving through everything, she said, Megan, I don't want you to say you left your marriage. I want you to say you escaped it because that's what you did.
Mm.
And so it helped me see myself as brave and courageous and not as a failure and someone who walked away. Because my religious upbringing, when I told certain family members, the response was, well, why didn't you fight for your marriage? And of course, if somebody's not in our marriage, they don't know it. I felt like I had been fighting for years, and my therapist really helped me come to that conclusion also of just, no, you did this, you were a fighter until there is nothing left to fight for. And that really helped me.
Yeah, I love that message. And I love you often share online, that you've been to therapy that day, or you're going to therapy, and some of the things that you want to work through. And I think you're right. It's all about finding the right fit. Because like you said, not everybody is a good fit for everybody. So yeah, finding that right person. And also, yeah, I love the escaping the marriage, right? Yeah. So what have you done to support your boys through this transition of divorce?
So many things.
Yeah,
but
that's a big question.
A big question. One of the biggest lessons I've learned is I read somewhere in a book or on a podcast, and I can't quote the author of this concept, but it was not my own original creation. But she said, think about the days that your children come home from the other parent's house as transition days, similar to how you would feel if you were jet lagged. And that concept helped me give them grace and compassion, because the households that we run are two very, very different lifestyle choices, different belief systems, different parenting styles overall.
Okay.
And so realizing that has helped me give my boys a lot of compassion, because they're living two very opposite lifestyles. One's very conventional, as you would think of the screen time and the conventional standard American diet type foods and activities that revolve around that. And my lifestyle is much more, let's go outside and play, let's eat fruits and veggies and really nourish our body. And so they are having an experience similar to what maybe we would have on a vacation with our food and lifestyle choices. And then they come back, and it's a very different environment. And so those first day and a half, those first 24, 48 hours, I used to plan all the fun things, and I would be like, I missed you so much, and let's dive right in to our lifestyle. And now I've really taken a step back. And those days I protect. We don't have any plans other than school. That we do a Wednesday to Wednesday schedule, which has been extremely helpful for us. Instead of a Sunday to Sunday, because we get the whole weekend and we do half of a parenting week at school. So that has worked beautifully for us. And so when I get them back on that Wednesday, we don't have any plans that evening other than taking a walk, walking the dog, being outside. I used to structure play dates or fun activities, and I realized it was way too much for my kids. And so I really protect that first 24, 48 hours where it's just an adjustment, like we were having jet lag. And I think that has helped us tremendously. Another thing that's helped us is just having grace with our lifestyle choices as far as food and screen time are big things for me. And because they're getting an amount that I wouldn't necessarily give at my house when they're at their dad's, I felt so guilty for the first year, 18 months about incorporating any type of sugar when they're with me or any type of screen time, because I know they're getting that in excessive amounts at the other parent's home. And so I would come to the point where I didn't feel like I could take them out for ice cream. I didn't feel like I could mess up at all, because I was trying to counterbalance what was happening in the household. And that caused a lot of anxiety for me to try to live up to this perfectionist standard. And it wasn't serving me or the kids. And so now really try to incorporate more of your 80-20. It's okay if we go out for ice cream one time that they're here, it's not going to hurt them. I don't feel as much like I have to be the opposite. And that's really helped me relax as a mom.
Yeah, I saw you shared on your stories. It was a few weeks ago. I think you went on a class trip or something, and you were asking the question. I think it was a cotton candy or some sort of fun treat of like, how do you manage this? And you were talking about that 80-20 rule, right? Like, it's okay sometimes we're out, we're doing this fun thing with this group, and that's okay to, kind of let your guard down a little sometimes and let the kids participate in that, that thing. I know something I've talked to you about before that was really, I find it very frustrating and I don't know how to deal with, is, the example I used with you was the laundry soap issue. So we've got like the super strong brand name laundry soap happening, and then my house is, a natural, and I use the dryer balls with essential oils, and and so how do you deal, and I'm assuming you deal with like similar things like that, like how do you navigate things like that, or do you just like brush it off like I can't, it's obviously something you can't control the laundry soap at the other house, so how do you in your mind deal with those kinds of things?
I used to get really wrapped up in the laundry soap and the food dyes and the screen time and all of these things until I realized exactly what you just said. That's not something I can control. And at some point, you have to really let go and trust that your kids are going to make it. I think about how I grew up. You guys, I grew up with the blue laundry soap, and I grew up eating copious amounts of sugar. Every single night we would have ice cream after dinner. Every single night. Oh, I can't. It's crazy. The stories that we could tell. I mean, I grew up on Lucky Charms in the morning, those kinds of very conventional lifestyle. The Nesquik, you guys remember the Nesquik that you put in?
Yeah.
So I have to trust that my kids are safe and they're healthy and they're going to be okay. And it took me a long time to get there because I would play these stories out in my head of just, what are they eating tonight at their dad's? And are they going to be okay? Are they going to grow up to have all these health problems because of the choices like the laundry soap? And then I came to the conclusion that that's not serving me and my mental well-being. And it's not something that I can control. For a long time, I bought my kids supplements and from a company that I use and I really love. And I would send them to their dad with all of these supplements. And I would be like, don't forget to take these supplements when you're with daddy, because I wanted so bad to try to counterbalance some of that. And then I realized that he wasn't giving them to them. And there were other things going on. And so I've really had to control what I can control and let go and trust the rest. Whatever higher power you believe in, you just have to trust that your kids are going to be okay. And I think about how I grew up, and most of us, who grew up in the 80s, 90s, how we grew up. And I think, okay, we're going to be okay. We can control what we can control in our home. And I teach my kids a lot. I advocate for them, and I'm helping them advocate for themselves. So they know what food dyes are, and they know these different things. Now they're kids. They're not going to turn down a donut for breakfast, but I'm trying to teach them awareness of when I eat the donut, I have a tummy ache. So maybe we eat half of a donut instead of 3 donuts or something like that.
Right.
When they're at their desk. I mean, I say, but I'm not exaggerating on that one.
I love that. I love that. We've been talking a lot about the kids and how you transition and how you focus on them. I'm so curious. You're a single mom, you're a health coach, you've got this very busy life. So, what do you do to focus on you? And how do you incorporate self care to make sure that you're able to stay healthy to be able to show up for your kids?
I love that question. And that's probably my favorite thing to talk about, because I think a lot of moms, especially when you're going through this massive life change, you put your own health and well-being on the back burner because it's just survival, right? It's just getting through that day. And then the next day, it's just getting through that day. And some things that I've realized going through this is, if I don't take care of myself, we're going down. The ship's going down because there is no backup. My parents live across the country from me. So I have great community where I am. And I definitely have people I can call if I get sick or something. But when you realize that it's on you to create your life and to show up for your kids and your business, and it just brings a whole nother level of awareness about taking care of ourselves. And so I've realized I can't afford to put myself on the back burner, because everything is affected by that. And that makes it easy for me to think, okay, am I getting enough sleep? Am I eating, quality foods? Am I perfect? Of course not. But if I don't get enough sleep, that next day, I'm not as great of a mom. Or if my kids are with their dad, I'm not showing up for my clients the way that I need to. And it helps me reframe that thinking of, man, I am the top priority. I am my business. I am the mom. I am, the friend and the daughter and all of these different roles that we play. If we want to show up as our best self, we have to take care of ourselves. And so there's a couple things that I've really focused on and really walk my clients through. And the first thing is sleep. It's very easy to say, well, I'm going to stay up a little bit later and I'm going to get this stuff done or whatever the excuse is. But when you're a single mom and your kids are with their other parent, you can, if it's truly a priority, that's a beautiful time to prioritize your sleep. You're not taking care of them that day. Say no to the commitments to go out with friends or to overcommit yourself and really focus on that. And so for about 3 out of the 4 years that I've been divorced, I've been going to bed. I mean, we joke about it on social media, but guys, between 8 and 9, I'm in bed, and that way I can wake up at 5:36 on my own and have a very productive day. And so that basic health need is something a lot of people want to put on the back burner, but it can really transform your health. And when I'm working with clients, I always coach back up your bedtime in 15-minute increments per week. So let's say I'm working with a mom who's going to bed at 11:30, 12. If she wants to really incorporate that part of her self-care, we back it up by 15 minutes. So if she's going to bed at 12, I say, okay, this week we're going to do 11:45. That's the only thing we do for that entire week. The next week we do 11:30, because sometimes people get inspired or they get excited and they're like, oh man, I'm going to start getting more sleep. And they go from the 11 o'clock to the 9 o'clock, and then they're laying there and they can't fall asleep. And so there's little things we can do, and they'll get frustrated and they'll give up, and we don't want that. So 15-minute increments has been really helpful for my clients to do. So sleep is a really big one. Getting out and moving your body. And I'm not talking about joining CrossFit and doing these massive workouts, but just taking a walk. Every time I was sad that my kids were going to their dads that day, or that I missed them, or I was lonely, I took a walk, and I would just walk. And sometimes I don't talk to anybody. I put my earbuds in and I listen to an audiobook or music or whatever, and I just walk. Other times I feel like I need to talk to people. I need that human interaction. And so I'll go a different direction and I'll walk in our downtown area where there are always people. And my goal is to talk to everyone that makes eye contact with me. And I'll just say something kind, like, isn't the weather beautiful? Or that color shirt looks great on you. Or, those kinds of things. When you're stopping at a stoplight to cross the street, talk to the people around you. You would be shocked at how much life you can bring into yourself, how much life you can almost speak to yourself by just talking to strangers.
Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh, so much great advice all in that. And your sleep routine is impressive. I'm not going to lie. How you fit it all into a day and still get to bed that early. And yeah, I think it's something most of us need to work on.
Yes.
Challenge accepted.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sleep will change your whole life. I mean, it really affects every area. It affects our hormones.
It does. Yeah.
It affects our weight. It affects our energy. Most of my clients come to me and they're exhausted. They're overstimulated. They're overwhelmed. If they could wave a magic wand and have one thing, it would be more energy. And so when we come to a place of all I want is more energy, we have to back it up and talk about sleep and rest and digest. Most of my clients, their nervous system is crazy dysregulated. And so we start with these baby steps of just the foundational health basics, and sleep, water, food, sunlight. It's really not that complicated. It's just fitting it all into your life and prioritizing it.
Well, the thing that stood out to me, because originally I was going to ask you, like, how do you fit it all into your day and go to bed that early, right? It just doesn't seem possible. But then the one key thing you said is you don't overcommit yourself. You're realistic about what you can fit into that day. And I think that right there says it all. I think the majority of us are probably overcommitted and trying to do all the things and be everyone to everyone and do it perfectly. And yeah, it's probably a little unrealistic. And I'm talking to myself here for anyone who's listening.
But when you think of it as a stepmom perspective, this is something that stepmoms are so guilty of, is overcommitting, because we're, especially in those earlier years, trying to prove ourselves. Like, look at me, I can do it all. I can look after these kids. I can cook the meals. I can clean the house. I can take them to their extracurriculars. I can do it all, right? And then you end up burning out. You're resentful, these kids, they're running my life and I don't know what's going on. And, there's always conflict. And so I think, Megan, your advice of, prioritizing and making sure that you're not overcommitting is a great tip for stepmoms.
Well, and I think to your point, Amelia, is then you add on to that, those of us that are also bio moms, right? We're trying to balance the bio kids, step kids, and then all that comes with that. And
Yeah.
then, those that work regular full-time jobs, like there's just, and then all the kids' extracurricular activities. I mean, and the list probably goes
It's a
on and on.
lot.
And then how do you keep your house clean on top of it and the laundry done and all the things?
You enlist the help of the teenagers.
Yes, yes, definitely.
That's what you do. Yeah.
Love that.
It's a choice, right? And I think at the end of the day,
Yeah.
we have to get to the point where we say, I'm choosing this lifestyle and it's not working for me, so I need to readjust, or I'm choosing to protect this. And for me, my kids don't have extracurriculars outside. Right now, we're doing soccer for just a little short season, but we don't have a lot of extracurriculars, and I'm okay with that because I say no to that. I'm able to say yes to our nightly walks and still get my kids to bed early and things like that. And so there's a day a week. Typically for us, it's Sundays where I have no plans ever. And so if somebody says, hey, let's get the kids together, I know Sunday is an off limits day for me because I want to wake up and think, what is our heart leading us to do today? What are we going to, and I'll ask my kids, what do you guys want to do today? And we'll get to choose that spontaneous, fun activity. And sometimes I get comments like, well, I just don't know how you do that. And it's because I say no to committing myself to other things. It's always a choice.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. And I think that's the thing. You have to do what works best for you and your family. I mean, I know at our house, and I know that you don't do the sports things. And I'm always like, oh my gosh, I wonder what that would feel like. Because we do have, the horse shows and the hockey tournaments and all the things. My kids love those things. So we do prioritize time for those things because that's my kids' passion, right? But it's all about priorities.
Yeah, I'm curious. So we brought up extracurricular activities, and obviously, your boys aren't doing them. How do you navigate that between the homes? I know that so much is so different between dad's house and your house. So how do you and dad co-parent around extracurriculars, right? Like, I know there's always the, hey, look, I can do what I want on my time. But when it comes to extracurriculars, we're on other people's time, right? Like it's typically team sports that you can't just say like, well, you're going to go this week, but not that week. How do you guys navigate that?
Actually, where we are right now is kids are in soccer. When they're with me, I take them to all the practices and all the games. When they're with their dad, he does not participate in that. And so it's been a tough conversation. And I've just been really honest with my kids of, hey, I'm happy to commit to this. Is that something you want to commit to, knowing you're only going to partake in half of the season? And that's just the way that it is. And I'm sorry that it's that way, but that's the reality of the situation. And they decided that yes, even though they're going to miss half of the season, they wanted to say yes to doing that. And so navigating, my ex-husband and I live an hour apart from each other. And so that's very challenging when it comes to things like this. And so I'm just honest with my kids and I let them make the decision. If they didn't want to participate because they could only attend half, I would have respected and honored that, but they chose to participate knowing they were going to miss half. And that's just, unfortunately, their lifestyle, their reality. Yep.
Yeah.
I
like that. Yeah. I like that you had that conversation with them. We actually had a similar situation at our barn. There was a girl that had, between two homes, and dad did not want to commit to her lesson every week. So she was only coming every other. I think having that open conversation with your kids about the reality of their situation is really important. Opening up those lines of communication with them, right? Because they're people too.
Yeah, well, and I love giving the kids a choice in it, right? It is them participating in the activity, and they're the ones that have to show up for the team or know that they're not going to be there half the time. So them having a voice and a choice, I think, is really powerful.
Absolutely.
I love that. And I love that you still gave them the choice despite knowing that they couldn't go half of the time. I think a lot of moms would be afraid to do that. Well, if your dad's not going to let you, and then the bad mouthing could start, and you're just like, look, this just is what it is. It's very factual. And so here's your options, option A or option B. And it's really simple. And that's probably contributes to keeping the hatred out of it all.
Absolutely. And at some point you have to realize that other people who are not in your situation are not going to understand your life. And if they want to judge me because my kids are only there half the time, feel free. You know,
Yeah.
you know the
Yeah.
story. I don't care. You can have your opinions and your thoughts. My kids get to choose if they want to participate, great. If they don't, great. I support whatever they choose, but I think it's really important. And they're learning their own life lessons through these kinds of things too.
Yeah, they for sure are. Yeah. Yeah. The one more thing I just want to touch on, I think when we were talking about before, just between two homes and things being very different, when you're talking about that, you just hope that your kids, are seeing the examples that you're giving. And I do see that. I do see, your son doing yoga with you and taking on those healthy habits. And that's so true. I can't tell you how many times we set up a little home gym in our living room. Our living room's really, really big. So like in one part, we decided, let's just put everything in the living room so that it's very accessible for everybody. And there's not an excuse like, I don't want to go downstairs or to the garage or whatever. And I can't tell you how many times I used to say to my daughter, like, why don't we work out together? Why don't you go, like, you're feeling, kind of sluggish. Why don't you go do a workout? And always, no, 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 like, no, I can't. I'm too tired. I'm not gonna. And I started working out. And guess who started working out?
Yep.
My daughter. Now, she doesn't do it with me, but she has her own set of weights now that is in her room. She has a TV up there. So she puts on a little YouTube. She has a girl that she follows and she does it upstairs. And she's pretty committed to it. And I'm like, oh, so it's just that thing of like, we need to stop telling them and we need to lead by example. And they will follow. They are watching.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I
Yeah.
think for some people, that would be really scary to think, oh my goodness, my kids are watching me. Like, I just want to tell them the right things. But I find a lot of comfort in that fact. They're watching me. So as long as I'm showing up for myself the way that I want them to show up for themselves,
Mm-hmm.
it's an easy win for me. And I
Yeah.
think being in this situation, you really have to get out of your comfort zone. My oldest son wanted to work out with a man and he was
Okay.
told no. And so I thought, well, you can work out with me and it is what it is. My youngest wanted to go fishing. And I said, mommy doesn't really know how to fish. Can you ask your daddy to do something like that? And the answer he received from that household was not one that he wanted. And so I thought, well, it's time for me to get out of my comfort zone. And I Googled fishing class near Greenville. I found one that was an hour and 15 minutes
Oh,
away. So I booked it. And it's like, that's not really, if you want to show up and serve your kids, you're going to be pushed out of your comfort zone, but you never know the blessing that you're going to get by doing things like that. And you have the power to learn. And so I don't know how to fish. I'm very out of my comfort zone, but I can show up for my kids and I can just say, hey, mommy's going to learn right alongside you. What a great experience for them and a life lesson for them. And good for me for forcing myself to do something that maybe I wouldn't choose.
I love that. That's amazing. Good
That's
for you.
incredible.
That's awesome. Yeah.
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 And something that I think serves all parents, right? Because whether we're talking about step families, blended families, separated households or not, I mean, nuclear families have these challenges too, right? I mean, one
They
parent
do.
may work a lot and one parent may be the stay-at-home mom and has the time, or a stay-at-home parent doesn't even have to be a mom anymore these days. And the message about stepping out of your comfort zone to show up for your kids is so valuable. And we can always learn new things to be able to do that. I think
Yeah.
And I
That's
like to
awesome.
tell my kids how uncomfortable I am. Like, I don't want to do this. This is not my jam or my thing, because I want them to step out of their comfort zone when the time is
Yeah.
right and to take a chance and to learn something new and to be a beginner. How many times as moms are we the beginner? Not very often, right? We kind of stay in our little lane and we do our little things that are comfortable to us. When's the last time you've started the fitness class that you've always wanted to start despite being a beginner, or you tried a new hobby, you took that painting class or the pottery class, or you joined a book club or something where you didn't fit into that environment, but it's something you wanted to do? We don't do that often enough. And I think it's really healthy for me to remind myself that it's okay to be the beginner.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
Such a
a
good
great message for your
message. Yeah.
kids. Yeah.
I know you talk a lot about outdoor activities. What are some of the things you and your boys do outside?
So we live in the South. South, which I do acknowledge makes it a lot easier to be outside year round than other parts of the country. But one thing I did was when I got divorced, we lived out in the country. We had 6 acres, we had chickens and the whole homestead life. And I moved from that life to the middle of downtown in my town. I mean, I'm a block away from Main Street, so very different environments, but it was the best thing I ever did because right downtown, we have a walking trail right outside my apartment complex. So the boys and I will go out, they'll ride their scooters or their rollerblades, and they're 7 and 10. So they're in that sweet spot of doing those kinds of things. And I give them the option. I say, okay, guys, we're going to go out for a walk. Grab your scooter or your rollerblades or a soccer ball or whatever they want to, and we'll walk pretty much the same loop. And that way we're getting the fresh air, the movement, and just for all of us, it's very grounding. So we also live very close to North Carolina, beautiful mountains. And so we like to go hiking. Anything that I can do to get them outside in an activity that we all mutually enjoy is a win for me.
Yeah, I love that.
Awesome.
So fun. So fun. Oh, it's been so incredible talking to you, Megan. You've shared so many incredible insights that, I just can't even begin to list the takeaways from today.
Yeah.
Share with our listeners, where they can connect with you. How can they find you? How can they chat with you?
Yeah, so I'm on Instagram at Megan.Jerrelle. That's Jerrelle. So they can follow me there. I also have my website, www.meganjerrelle.com. And I have a micro habits e-guide, and that's where I always start clients, and that'll give them a really easy step-by-step way of how to create some of these habits. One of the things a lot of my mom clients struggle with is things like laundry or dishes or keeping up with the household tasks when they're career moms, they've got the kids and extracurriculars and all these things. And so I teach through that e-guide kind of how to pare down some of those things and partner them with other habits. And they can download that for free or text it. If they text the word habits to my business line, which is 831-299-2240. It'll automatically respond with a link for them to download for free. So they can print that out and use that guide to kind of help them get started.
Love that.
That's awesome.
All right. Time for some fun. Amelia, you're up.
All right. So rapid fire questions. I think we already know some of the answers, but we'll go through them anyways. So first up, coffee or tea?
Tea these days, unfortunately.
All right. We all know the answer to this. Early bird or night owl?
Definitely not a night owl, early all the way.
Dogs or cats?
I have both. So I have a German Shepherd
know.
and a hairless cat. I love them both, but I think I would have to choose my dog.
He's pretty cute.
He is cute.
Movie night or game night?
Definitely movie night. Not so much on the games, but I don't do a lot of movies, and I typically split them up into 2 nights. So we watch when the boys are with me, we watch half the movie in one night, half the movie in another night, so that we can get our bedtime on.
That surprised me. That question the answer to that always surprises me.
Me too. I totally thought you were going to say game night.
No, not so much. You guys, like the little board games that kids want to play makes me want to stab my eyes out with a fork. So
yeah, I get it. But there's some fun ones as they start getting older. Yeah. I tell you, we are having so much fun with our teenage girls with some of the games that there are out there.
Maybe we'll
what's up next? Mountains or beach?
I mean, can we do both?
Yeah.
Mountains are closer to me, so we're definitely in the mountains a lot more than at the beach. Yeah. But I grew up on the beach in California, so it is close to
me. Books or movies?
Always books for myself. Absolutely.
Yeah. Pancakes or waffles?
Oh, probably pancakes, because I can hide some good protein in my pancakes.
Yeah. Summer or winter?
Summer, all day long.
Yeah. Sweet or savory?
Sweet. I would like to be the savory person, but let's be real. I'm
not. City life or countryside?
Currently city life. I mean, I am absolutely loving it. Moving to where people are was a huge game changer for me to not feel so alone and lonely in this season.
You reminded me of the Little Mermaid there. I want to be where the people are.
Yep, that's me.
That's funny.
Oh, that's awesome. This has been
Well,
such a fun conversation.
it
It's
has.
always great to learn new things about each of our guests. Thank you so much for being with us, Megan. We appreciate
You
you.
guys for having me. It was so fun. And I love your open, vulnerable conversation and that nothing's really off the table. And I think it's really important for women, especially, to start
Yeah.
sharing the vulnerable parts of our lives. And that's how we make connections. So thank you guys for what
It
you're doing.
is. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Oh, thank you.
If you are looking for more resources as a stepmom or biomom in a step family situation, you can check out all we have to offer on our website, theartofblendedchaos.com, or connect with us on Instagram at theartofblendedchaos. Have an awesome day.
A quick disclaimer to cover our asses. The views, thoughts, and opinions expressed on today's episode are the speaker's own, so if you didn't like them, why didn't you turn this off sooner?
The material and information presented here is for general information purposes only. If you need support with a specific topic, you can do so by booking a one-on-one coaching call through our website, theartofblendedchaos.com. This podcast is not intended to replace professional, legal, or medical advice. You seriously didn't think we were lawyers or doctors, did you?